You supposed to be David. Who next? David, my mentee. Who's next?
Next on the
Teacher
list,
up.
Alexis Montclair.
Yes, Alexis. Is Alexis fresh blood?
Yes.
She's fresh blood. Yes, you got it.
Alright, good. Nobody's saying anything, so I'm about to ruin your fucking night. Sorry in advance. So, what actually got me here in the beginning was the fellow I was making fun of. The very first time I came to Open Floor, he was a poet. And he had a lot of poems that ended up being about suicide. And I was actually up till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning this morning talking a friend of mine out of taking his own life. It's very common. A lot of people feel it. Shit gets bad. And unfortunately, suicide is, well, fortunately, Suicide Prevention Month is September. And this marks the 2nd year anniversary of my mom losing her battle with mental illness. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to take you. I'm sorry, but it's for a good reason. So here we go.
Let it out. The floor is yours.
It's been 2 years, and I'm not okay. On Tuesday night a year ago, I was having a rough night. I was going to take a shower, feel better, and try to pep myself up. I walked into the bathroom from the darkness of the house and flipped on the light, turned on the shower, etc. Behind the bathroom door hangs one of my mom's tracksuits. I've always kept it there for some reason, unworn since the last time she had it on, hung up just as pristine as you please. And something just broke. I snatched it down and just wailed into it. I desperately searched for her smell in the fabric, and it wasn't there. I shattered, knowing this was the closest thing I would ever have again to a hug from my mom. A fucking velveteen track jacket that I had hidden behind a door for a year. I stepped into the shower and sobbed for half an hour. The shower is normally where I cry about things. I can convince myself that the tears aren't streaming down my face, that it's just hot water from the faucet. I'm strong, I don't cry. I can handle this. And then I slide down the wall and sit on the floor of my shower, clutching my knees to my chest, and no one ever has to know. There's no coddling, no pats on the head or awkward hugs, no words or consolation that I can only offer a pitiful thanks for. There's no showmanship of grief, just me and my loss, all alone. I've dreaded this day for a while. It's marked on my calendar, just with a sad face. That night, when my phone rang, the screen lit up, Dad, and I knew something was wrong. I don't even know how it started, but it ended with him leaving and staying in a hotel. He called me desperate, wanting me to go to the house and try and check on her, that she was snarling and screaming, that he actually feared she, the person who he loved with all his heart, whom would never be capable, would hurt him. So he gathered some things and went to the hotel and let her calm down. He called me when he checked in and we talked. I made a choice not to go, even though the moment I made that choice, I knew I would never see her again. I felt that if I went, I might be able to save her, but I was so tired. We talked for about an hour, that it was possible she would hurt him, and all he could do is cry and scream, "She would never hurt me, Alex! I left her when she needed me most! I've got to go back! She will never hurt me!" And I fucking stopped him. While I may have saved my father's life that night, I may have been able to save hers too, and I refused to go. I told him that I loved him, and I hung up and tried to call her, but she didn't answer. I called and called. Eventually, I gave up. I understood, you see. We had talked about suicide a lot before. She always told me that if the time came, it wasn't anyone's fault, that she was just tired and didn't want to play anymore. Not to be upset, not to be sad, that she would be free. And that was that. When I returned to my room that night, I looked at Jason. I told him what had happened and said, "She's gone." I woke up around 8 a.m. to my phone ringing, "Dad," on the screen. I knew what had happened before I answered. His voice was tired, quiet. "She's gone. Your mom's gone. She shot herself. Get here quick." And he hung up. The first call I made was to my brother's house. My sister-in-law answered. How do you tell someone? I don't even remember what I said. I made the calls, holding it together, my voice only wavering, never breaking. Every call I made was one less for my father to have to make. When I got to the house, Dad was outside, just sitting, blank. He wrung his hands and just stared out into the trees. There were cops everywhere. They greeted me, got my information, and took coroner preference from me. I was suddenly in charge. Jesus Christ, what is happening? I grew up in that moment, and I was the lion. I took over, came up the stairs to the porch to collect the dogs so they wouldn't be underfoot. Max, her puppy, had laid with her body all night, sleeping in her lap. I saw her through the door and will never forget the sight. She looked peaceful. Laid out on the couch, CD player in her hand, headphones on. She had been listening to Elvis. Her mouth was open and her head leaned back. I grabbed the dogs and walked back down the stairs, the officers allowing me a few moments to sate my need to look by pretending to do something else. And then I kicked on autopilot. Dad still sat wringing his hands, periodically taking his glasses off to wipe the tears. He was just repeating, I should have never left. I should have stayed. She needed me and I left her. I should have never left. I left her. I left her. I left her when she needed me the most. I should have never left. One of the officers pulled me to the side and let me know they were going to take her out the back door into the ambulance. Two other officers stood on the opposite side of my dad and talked about football, and he listened in. They had seen the UGA stuff in the house, Go Dogs, and knew they could talk about football to distract him into turning his head so he didn't have to see the stretcher leave. The officer with me told me I could enter the house and that I might want to before your dad does. I understood what that meant. There was going to be some cleanup. So I climbed the stairs and got to work. The scene was neat enough at first. On the dining room table was a pillow, wet and glistening with gore. There were brains on the couch. The jokes are right. Consistency's pretty much like tapioca. That was all that was left of her, and I was wiping it up with Brawny and some Windex. I shoved the pillow into a trash bag so Dad wouldn't see it. Even that felt perverse and wrong. The cops stalled him for me. Family came that day and we all cried together. While no one was watching, I gave the pillow to Jason to dispose of. We walked down the steps to the driveway and I clutched the bag. I begged him not to throw it away. That I couldn't bear for the last of her to be put in the trash. In a dump somewhere. I pulled the gore-soaked pillow out. The weight of the blood in the matter almost made me drop it. I sat, collapsing as my knees finally gave way. I clutched her pillow into my face and sobbed that it wasn't real. That I was being punked. That I was dead and in hell. Please let this be my eternity in hell, if it would mean that she was still alive. I was sad, I was angry, I was abandoned. I screamed at her, how could you do this? How could you leave me? I fucking need you. You were my best fucking friend. You weren't done teaching me. Why did you leave me? Her blood on my hands, my face, mixed with tears and liquid brains. I lost it and it all just came screaming out. Just as quickly as it came, it faded. Jason gently took the pillow out of my bloody hands and I didn't have the strength to snatch it back. He burned it and brought me what was left of the pillowcase because I, in some monstrous state, had begged him to. The house was clean, too perfect. She drove Dad out of the house that night so she could prepare her final moments the way she wanted and check out, as she put it. She had fully intended to kill herself that night. She had planned it down to the last detail. She had taken the key to the gun case, taken out the pistol, and put the key back. The way she had positioned her body so the pillow would catch most of the gore and blood from the wound. She cleaned the house for Dad one last time. There was laundry going in the dryer. She had prepared a note and left it. It was unintelligible, like two voices fighting for control. Everything in the house was pristine, prepared. All the pages in her journals ripped out and destroyed. We never found them. She was just gone. And yeah, I know, she's in me. She's in the lives of the people she touched. She's all around me. But when the world is quiet and in the dead of the night, when I'm doing laundry by myself and I can't get a stain out, when I swipe my phone and hit favorites, only to hover over my thumb over her picture and realize her number's been shut off and disconnected, she's just gone. I called the coroner. I worked with the funeral home so we could see her one last time before sending her to the Valkyrie's fire. My dad kissed her forehead and stroked her hair. Her face was so peaceful, almost blissful. All the lines in her face were frozen into a serene smile, restful and free, with only a tiny Band-Aid under her chin and a hand towel wrapping the shattered remains of the top of her skull to hide it from us. Hollow points. They get the job done. I too kissed her forehead. I had to take my dad's arm and walk with him to lead him out. It was over. I used to call her and talk to her voicemail, because just hearing her say, "Leave a message and I'll call you back, thanks," was enough. I've been through some real downs lately. So many times where I would have sold my soul for her advice. Especially here lately in the past few months. Just to hear her say, "Do what makes you happier. Fuck that bullshit." Just to be able to talk to her and to see her face as she listened. I'll never be okay. I will always have the sight of her laying there, mouth open, and staring at the ceiling burned into my eyes. I'll always have a 9mm round shaped hole in my heart and her blood on my hands. I miss my fucking mom.